I saw several stories over the weekend about Ryan Day's future at Ohio State. One even suggested that he'll be the head coach of the Miami Hurricanes in 2025. Why is that, by the way? By the way, I don't think he's going anywhere for a while. Oh, and alcohol sales at the big house. That's a thing. Lockdown Big Ten starts right now.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman, coming up on 40 years as a sports talk show host and play-by-play announcer. And I want to thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Terms and conditions apply. Ryan Day to South Beach? I know, it's a head-scratcher, but maybe. Plus, we have Big Ten liquor at the big house and our Big Ten top 10 observations over the weekend. So I caught up on my weekend reading, and I came across a piece that strongly suggested Ohio State football coach Ryan Day will be the head coach of the Miami Hurricanes in 2025. The source was one I hadn't heard of before, and it was a little clickbaity. It worked. I clicked it on just to check it out because I'm always doing my homework for you guys, seeing what's out there. But I didn't give it much thought until I did, because it occurred to me that I actually saw a couple of stories over the weekend about Ryan Day's future, and this is about the third or fourth time I've come across stories recently about Ryan Day's future, and the second time I've heard him being associated with the Miami job. So I'm going to throw that out there just for a second, because if you know two things about me here at Locked On Big Ten, if you've been with us for a while, you know that I lean into the motto, where there's smoke, there's fire. But in this case, I don't think you get more smoke from a small child's birthday cake than you get this. But I don't know. We'll throw it out there for a minute. And second, if you've watched this podcast before, you know that I don't shy away from interesting conversation like this. So why not? Still another 100 days till we kick off the college football season. So let's entertain the hypothetical here that Ryan Day bounces from Ohio State as the head coach in Miami next year. Now, before we go there, a few ground rules here. Again, if you're new to Locked On Big Ten and you're one of our newest subscribers, thank you, by the way. Glad you discovered us. Welcome aboard. Let me let you know that I usually have strongly backed Ryan Day on this podcast. Prior to and even after losing to the team up north 3 straight years, I've been quick to point out that going into that Michigan game last year, over the last 5 years, Ryan Day has won 90% of his games. That's remarkable. That's like better than anybody. It's fantastic. And it would be insane to get rid of a guy like that, or force him to put his hands up in the air and says, you know what? I've had enough of these expectations here in Columbus. I'm going to go somewhere else for a while. Again, these things could happen, but we'll discuss and whether I think that they really will happen. I have also defended him during the Kyle McCord, Devin Brown quarterback battle last year because of his awesome history with quarterbacks. His history is why Aaron Nolan, a 5-star recruit freshman, is sitting in a very crowded quarterback room in Columbus, Ohio. Although I do think that the Kyle McCord situation, I think he was better than people gave him credit for. And I think that Ohio State may wish he had hung around for one more year. That's for a future podcast, by the way, we're going to do this summer. Now, I've also done some podcasts here where I've praised Ryan Day for his reset on the entire Buckeye football program behind the scenes this past offseason, whether it be name, image, and likeness, transfer portal, among other things. Got a lot of borderline guys that could have gone to the NFL to stay. He's done a great job keeping this roster together, adding to this roster, and this roster is so loaded. I think they have as good of a chance as anybody of winning the Big Ten in 2024. But what if they don't? What if they don't? All right. So let's entertain the original hypothetical premise on this podcast. What would have to happen in order for Ryan Day to be coaching elsewhere other than Ohio State in 2025? Like, let's say, Miami. First of all, something would have to happen to cause Day to be fired or resign. Would it have to be cataclysmic? Probably not. I mean, the bar's pretty high at Ohio State. The expectations are extremely high. We can go through all these things. You know what the deal is at Ohio State. It's not like a lot of other schools. All right. So maybe you can still have a great season and it might not be good enough either for Ohio State or either for Ryan Day as well. He has very high standards as he's been sitting in that chair at Ohio State for some time now. The first thing that comes to our minds when I bring you the previous thing, what could cause a situation where Ryan Day would ever be fired or resign? Well, again, the first thing that comes to our mind is the team up north, right? That game in November. If they lose it, it'd be four straight times. People in Ohio don't like that. So that could be something. Even though the rest of the season is spectacular, and this year could be different, remember, win or lose to Michigan, there's still a strong possibility the Buckeyes could still be in the Big Ten championship game. Remember, it's just the top two teams in the Big Ten get to play for the Big Ten championship. No more divisions this year. There's even a stronger possibility that the Buckeyes will be in that expanded 12-team college football playoff. Hard to get rid of a guy that does that, I think. But with change comes more change. And there's been a lot of change at Ohio State from the top on down. You've got Walter Ted Carter, who became the new president for the school in January. Plus, the athletic director, Gene Smith, is retiring next month. And Gene Smith and Ryan Day are very, very close. Gene Smith is the one that gave him the job when Urban Meyer left. They've been very close. Ross Bork is taking over. New guys like new presidents and new athletic directors, and particularly if you put two guys that are both new in the same situation, those guys sometimes like to hire their own people eventually. It always happens. Does it happen this year? Does it happen next year? Usually it happen 3 years from now. I don't know, but it happens a lot under these kind of situations. Would a loss to Michigan again be enough for the new people in charge to say, okay, this is our opening. It's been 4 years in a row. Let's get a new guy in there. Let's put our own stamp on this thing. Maybe. It's just happened before. You know it has. I still think it's crazy talk, but nevertheless, would Ryan Day be in a position where he wouldn't want to be around anymore? Maybe things are fine. Maybe, contracts still are continuing. Maybe a loss to Michigan or a win here or getting into the playoffs. Everything's fine, but maybe he doesn't want to deal with all the craziness anymore. I mean, it's one of the highest pressure jobs in all of college football, all of college sports for that matter. And maybe it has a shelf life. I mean, it happened to Urban Meyer. Urban was still winning games. Urban said, I have had enough. Urban said he had enough in Florida. Urban has a short shelf life. Would the same thing happen to Ryan Day? I don't know. I don't have the answers to those questions, but things like that happen all the time. Now, let's address this very specific notion that they could end up in Miami. First of all, there would presumably have to be a job opening. That job currently belongs to Mario Cristobal, who they made a huge offer to get him to come there 2 years ago. Now, he's been 12-13 in those 2 years. And Hurricane fans used to be like Ohio State fans and expect to win a dozen games a year and winning huge, important bowl games. Miami lost to Rutgers in the Pinstripe Bowl there in New York. They don't like that. So they liked winning 12 games a year back in the early 12,000s and being national champions. They think they can still do that again. Maybe they can, maybe they can't. But there's no doubt that there's pressure on Cristobal to have a big year this year. Whether or not Ohio State can beat the team up north, Ryan Day will be the head coach of the Buckeyes for years to come, in my opinion, unless he's the one that decides he wants to change. That's what I think. All right. What do you think? Always love to hear from you. Comments on Twitter or X at Talk Big Ten. Comments on YouTube. And don't forget our website, talkbig10 10.com. Always love to hear from you there as we discuss these issues. You guys are pretty good about hitting that up as well. All right. And if you're new or not, if you haven't subscribed yet, please go ahead and do so. That helps us a lot. It gets you and me together on an individual basis here to subscribe. It's free. No other information is required. And we're good to go talking Big Ten forever. And you can follow Locked On Big Ten for free wherever you get your podcast. That way, get the latest episode of this podcast as soon as it becomes available each and every day. So more Buckeye news. The Buckeyes, the roster's loaded for 2024. It just got a little more loaded. We'll tell you about that. And liquor sales coming to the big house. If you thought it was loud before, going to get louder. All that coming up right here on Locked On Big Ten. Let me tell you about LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring people for your small business or a small office and you don't have a lot of time because, people wear multiple hats, LinkedIn Jobs is where you need to go when you need to hire people. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools that help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. And it's not just some job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats, you might not have the time or the resources to go out and hire people. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make that process easier, and they even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions. Perfect. So check it out. You can post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Well, thank you for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen every day, especially you everydayers out there. Meanwhile, be sure to subscribe on YouTube and share and follow and like Locked On Big Ten, your team every day. Thank you very much for that. And don't forget to pop on over to our website, talkbig1010.com. Merch, information, all of our podcasts, every one of them right there, and even grouped by school. Your favorite team, easy to find. If we're talking about you that day, so like today, we're going to file this one away under Ohio State, right? You'll find that right there. This is already one of the most loaded Ohio State rosters in memory, and it just got better over the weekend. South Carolina safety Keenan Nelson Jr. has announced that he is transferring to Ohio State via the transfer portal. Played in 15 games in 2 seasons and started 4 games. After safety Jihad Carter left, the Buckeyes needed some depth back there, and although the Buckeyes starters in the secondary are pretty good, you got Caleb Downs. Remember, he came from Alabama. You got Alton Ransom and Jordan Hancock back there, but they got a little deeper now in the secondary. Now, we've talked a lot about the Buckeyes today. Let's talk about the Wolverines for just a little bit. The Big House is making a big change in 2024. Alcohol sales are coming to Ann Arbor in the Big House during games. That's not been a thing before. The Board of Regents voted for a Class C liquor license. It'll start August 31st for the season opener. That's right. Beginning this season, if you're going to a game at the Big House in Ann Arbor, you can purchase alcohol at the game. If you thought more than 100,000 fans were loud already, wait till you allow them to purchase alcohol on site. It's going to get a little louder over there. Some of the great games coming up at home on the schedule this year at Michigan include Texas. That's going to be huge. Southern Cal coming now that they're in the Big Ten. Michigan State, Oregon Ducks. It's going to be awesome in Ann Arbor. Speaking of teams in Michigan, Michigan State junior starting safety Jaden Mangum is transferring to Michigan. This coming after a former Michigan linebacker and 4-star recruit and redshirt freshman Samaj Bridgman is transferring to Michigan State. Swapping players out. Not really. We're not trading players yet. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine trading players in college football? Who knows? Anything's possible these days. Anyway, Bridgman visited East Lansing last week. Bridgman did not play as a true freshman at Michigan last year, but he did get a ring. Former Iowa backup quarterback Deacon Hill. Have some news here. He committed to Utah Tech. Utah Tech after leaving the Hawkeyes this spring in the transfer portal. Now, Hill began his career at Wisconsin. He redshirted a year. He played in 1 game the second year. Decided to go to Iowa, and he got forced onto the field there, even though he wasn't the best. But when Cade McNamara had a season-ending injury, Deacon Hill had to start 9 games for him, including the Big Ten championship. They won a lot of games together. And anyway, he's taking his talents down to Utah Tech. Glad he landed at another spot. I know a lot of you don't know much about Utah Tech football, but that's where Deacon Hill is going to be. And presumably be the starter there. Now, as we look into the future for Iowa and their quarterbacks there, Ryan Fitzgerald, He's the son of former Northwestern head football coach Pat Fitzgerald, who had the job until last summer, and then the hazing scandal blew up at Northwestern. Well, his son is now going to play for Kirk Ferentz, part of the 2025 class, and he's the second quarterback that they've announced because Indiana product Jimmy Sullivan also announced recently that he is coming to Iowa as well. So a lot of quarterback. That's good because we've done stories about how Iowa was a little thin at quarterback moving forward. So looks like the future's getting a little better, a little deeper down the road for the Iowa Hawkeyes. Anytime we talk recruiting like this, we like to mention our friends that we just talked about at LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your jobs for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Terms and conditions apply. And finally, congratulations to the Illinois baseball team for winning the Big Ten regular season championship with the win on Saturday. They will be the number 1 seed in the Big Ten tournament, which begins Tuesday at Omaha, Nebraska. The Fighting Illini have 8 seed Penn State in the opening round for that. 3 seed Indiana will start off against 6 seed and their rival Purdue. 2 seed Nebraska facing number 7 seed Ohio State, and 4 seed Michigan plays 5 seed Iowa. Every single one of these games will be on the Big Ten Network, so you can check that out. Obviously, we'll be very interested in how things occur in the Big Ten tournament as well. Hey, I mentioned this before. If you're at home in a day, or maybe you work from home, or maybe you have TVs in your offices, whatever the case may be, you have the talking heads on in the daytime, on ESPN, FS1, Fox. You don't have to turn it down because all the shouting, talking over each other, all that stuff. Make the switch to Locked On Sports today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming and the nonsense and the talking over everybody. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app that we tell you about all the time. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you are new to Locked On, in our final segment, we have very exciting features that we do each and every week. On Mondays, it's my top 10, Big Ten top 10 observations from the weekend. We'll see what I have. We'll see what you think about that. By the way, on Tuesdays, we always do Tuesday tweets. Go ahead and follow me on Twitter or X at Talk Big Ten. And Wednesday, we always do some sort of power rankings. Thursdays, we always look ahead to the weekend on the Big Ten Network. We point out Big Ten classics and live action that you might be interested in over the weekend. And then Fridays, we do some sort of pick 'em, pigskin picks, basketball picks, futures, all that kind of stuff. Always coming up with something on Fridays. So we always like to have a benchmark feature for the final segment each week. That's coming up next. My Big Ten top 10 observations from the weekend. We'll share those with you in just 1 minute here on Locked On Big Ten. FanDuel, it's winner take all time. We've got the NBA playoffs, got the NHL playoffs. We're rolling. Don't forget the Major League Baseball season as well. FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, more, just about anything you can think of. All you have to do is visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Tonight, Monday night, we're going to look at hockey. We got a game 7. Out in the West, second round, Oilers and Canucks. Oilers are favored. I like the Oilers in this one. The number, 5.5. I think that's a smidge high for a game 7. Game 7, guys are tight. Guys are nervous. Scores are lower. Take the under. 5.5 goals. Oilers and Canucks, game 7 for their series. All right. Check it all out. You can do it too on FanDuel. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. It's time now for our final segment. We talked about my top 10 Big Ten observations from the weekend. We're going to put them on screen here, and you can follow along. And if you're on audio only, I'll go ahead and describe them to you here. Before we get going, I want to give a shout out, an honorable mention, if you will, to Iowa quarterback Deacon Hill. Again, bouncing around from Wisconsin to Iowa, and it just looked like he wasn't going to get any more playing time going to Utah Tech. Like, not the biggest, most known football powerhouse in the world by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm glad he landed. And he's a good story, and we wish him well there. At number 10 in our list, Minnesota baseball closing out the season with a 4-2 win over Northwestern. We get to be so football and basketball intensive, so I just wanted to go ahead and give these guys a shout out, wrapping up their season for the regular season as we get ready for the Big Ten tournament that starts on Tuesday. At number 9, Iowa baseball. They actually stepped out of Big Ten play to close out the season and played Florida International, FIU, and beat them in 7 innings on Saturday, 16-4 to close it out. So congratulations to them. At number 8, Indiana baseball closing out theirs with a win over Michigan, 8-4. That was on Friday night. At 7, I want to mention a couple things about Penn State baseball. They beat Maryland 19-7 on Friday, and they beat Maryland 6-5 in 10 innings on Friday. So they swept the doubleheader, put up a lot of runs on the scoreboard. Penn State baseball did. At number 6, Michigan State baseball with their 11-6 win over Nebraska to close their season, the regular season out. And at number 5, I wanted to give a shout out to Rutgers baseball. Big win on Saturday over Ohio State to close it out 12-1 in that game. At number 4, we're going to mix it up here a little bit. Michigan Stadium alcohol sales. How about that? That makes our top 10 observations from the weekend when we learned about that. Alcohol sales at the Big House starting on August 31st during all football games. Now you don't have to sneak it in. Or, I'm sorry, you don't have to drink it all in the parking lot, right? That's how that goes. Number 3, it's not an observation about the weekend, but it's more about looking forward here. That Big Ten tournament, the baseball tournament, actually starts on Tuesday. Mark your calendars, Tuesday and Wednesday, first round games of the Big Ten tournament in Omaha, Nebraska. And then at number 2, Illinois, on their game on Saturday, they beat Purdue 18-10. First of all, the 18 runs is impressive, but that was the one that clinched it for the regular season championship for the Fighting Illini. Congrats to them. They will be the number 1 seed in the Big Ten tournament, which leads us naturally to naming them. They get to hang a banner, the Illinois Big Ten baseball champions for the regular season. So those are our top 10 observations, plus the bonus with Deacon Hill for honorable mention coming off of the weekend. Maybe you have something else. Maybe you think I forgot something. We'd love to hear from you. Go ahead and hit me up. Many ways to get a hold of me. And first of all, that could be on Twitter or X at Talk Big Ten number 10. Don't forget our website. You see the crawl on the bottom, talkbig10number10.com. All of our podcasts are there. Comments are there. You can get swag, shirts, pennants, hats, all that right there on the website. So go ahead and check that out as well. And your comments on YouTube are always welcome as well. If you haven't yet, please subscribe. Just click it, and that's it. No other information, and we're together forever. Big Ten. If you have a Big Ten alum, family member, friend, tell them about us. Word of mouth is how this thing spreads, and we've been growing like gangbusters thanks to you guys. Always appreciate that. So be sure to subscribe if you haven't, and follow this podcast right now on your favorite podcast app, and you'll get the latest episode of Locked On Big Ten as soon as it becomes available each and every day. And in addition to us, actually, go ahead and watch another one after this one. More Locked On Big Ten coming up. But if you'd also like to check out our friends from Locked On called Locked On Sports Today, they're there for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts from Locked On, plus our national shows covering every single league. Just go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. We're into it, man. Another week is here. More news out there. We're inside of about 100 days to the start of the college football season. So that's all very exciting as well. We got our eyes and ears on everything there for you because we love talking about it with you. Can't wait to talk to you next time on a brand new episode tomorrow. But thanks for joining us here today. I'm Craig Sheeman for Locked On Big Ten. We'll talk to you next time.